Okay, this video is going to be for changing out the intake manifold. I'm also replace the alternator and the water pump. And the reason for me replacing the manifold is because this is a manufacturer one, and they got this plastic head on it where the cooling system runs through, and mine's cracked. And I'm going to show you that crack and show you how to take this off and everything. But first we got to start out by removing this top plate, and I'll show you how to do that as well. Now, to remove this bolt, you can use one of your extensions. It's a square bolt and the size is 1/4. Remove this shield. Okay, now the part I was telling you about, this plastic, is this whole piece here. You can't really see it because it got stuff in the way, but mine's cracked right there. I don't know if I can get that in there for you to see, but yes, it cracked right down there. And I was going to try to put some JB weld or something on it, but I don't want problems later on down the road once it crack again or overheat. So I'm going to do the job right, guys, and replace the whole manifold. I got the new manifold in the mail today. I ordered it off of eBay. It was only about $130, which is just a lot cheaper than the rest of the guys were asking. But as you can see, the replacement one has this aluminum front end on the manifold, and I told you mine's had cracked here. So hopefully that's going to be a good one, and it'll last quite a long time, because these cars are some good running cars, and I like to keep it around for a little bit longer. I forgot to mention that the new intake manifold did come with a bunch of parts and brackets. It came with a new thermostat, so we're going to be replacing all those parts. And it got some instructions here on, I guess that would be the number of bolts that's on the intake manifold. But I guide y'all through that while y'all watch me take this apart. Okay, we're going to start with taking the intake hose off. You have a bolt here and you have a bolt here. Take this whole hose off that's attached to the throttle body, and that's all we do. We don't really need to remove the air filter. You could if you want to. I should go ahead and replace the air filter since I'm doing this whole thing. I might as well. I think I will. But only these two bolts are the ones you have to worry about for now while you're taking this hose off. After that, I'll be removing the alternator. And they say when you're doing anything with the electrical, it's always good to disconnect the negative terminal on your battery. I'll show you guys that as well. These screws are 8mm. So remember, righty tighty, lefty loosey. Let's loosen that guy up. And if you look over here on the right side of the air intake hose, there is also some valves that need to come off first. Just kind of wiggle them up out of there. and just kind of remember where everything goes when you go to put it back together. I'm gonna get those guys, remove those guys, get them put to the side. And got the air intake taken off. And before I go any further, YouTube, let me tell you this. As you're taking everything apart, it's a good habit to put everything in order the way you took it off. So when you put it back together, you just do it in reverse. That way you don't forget nothing or lose anything, and you keep track of everything and make sure everything goes back in its proper place. Next, I'm going to remove the alternator. Before you take off the alternator, you might want to make sure you have a diagram on your car that shows which way the belt is ran. It's all one piece. And remember, like I said, you got to remove one side of the battery anytime you're dealing with anything electrical on the car. Just remove the terminal, negative terminal on the battery. Just put that aside. Just tuck it down somewhere so it doesn't pop back up. As you can see here, before I actually get the alternator off, there is this metal bracket up here that's held on by 4 screws, and these screws are all 8mm as well. So get those guys out the way. To take the belt off the alternator here, there's a tension pulley, and as you can see, I got my ratchet inside the tension pulley. That is a 1/4 inch ratchet, and you simply do so like as you can see. And I might can take it off with one hand here, YouTube. It's kind of hard to do it with one hand and got the camera in at the same time, but I give it a shot. Got it. To get the alternator off, there's 2 bolts here you have to undo. 2 10mm bolts. All you have to do is loosen them up and lift the alternator out. There's notches in the alternator where it just slides down on top of those. It's not holes, so the alternator will slide up, and you can leave those bolts in place. And under here, there's also, kind of lift that up and wiggle it back. It's also a 10mm inch nut, but you get that removed. You get this clip undone. Make sure you don't break the tabs on it, and that you can remove your alternator when that's done. Now this tab right here, you want to be careful. You don't want to yank that out. There is actually a little clip you push in on, and you can remove the clip just like that there. You don't want to break it. When you're removing the throttle body, be careful. You got 2 tabs on this side. You don't want to just yank them off. You want to press them in with your thumb or whatever you can, press your finger and kind of just slide it off like that there. It just slides off. Then you have one here on top. You want to do the same. Lay those guys on the side. Then you got 2 4 8mm bolts on each side, and a 10mm bolt holding this bracket down. You get those loose, and you can just lay your throttle body to the side. And I also forgot to mention, there is 2 bolts holding the EVR on the back of the throttle body. Those are 10mm bolts as well, but You get those off, those two off too, and the throttle body will come right off. Now once you get this bracket bolt loose right here, since it's just a single bolt by itself, good idea to do it to me is go ahead and stick it in the manifold where it's going to go, just so it doesn't get lost. Once you get all the screws removed out the throttle body, all four of the other screws, you want to do the same thing with those. Just go ahead and stick them in the other manifold, just so you don't lose the parts. As you see, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 there for the bracket. Alright, once you have all your 5 bolts undone, just throw your throttle body over to the side. Next, I'm going to take out the ignition coils. So be careful with these tabs right here. There's a little clip here at the bottom you can just press in with your thumb and kind of wiggle it out. And you want to do that for all 8 of them. 4 on this side and 4 on that side. After you get all the fuel injectors out, the coils out, ignition coils, we're going to take this plug out of here. Take this plug out, this little piece right there, set it to the side. Get a crescent wrench to get that out of there, or a wrench, crescent wrench, whatever you want to use. Then we got this hose here to take off, and I'll be back with you when we undo the fuel rails. We're going to undo the fuel rails. There's 2 bolts on each side, and then we still got the thermostat. But I'll be back to show you all that once I get all these other parts out, like here and this hose here. There's a clamp on the back of here where we're going to have to use to take that off. We're going to need to take this off. It has a 15mm bolt on the back of it. That right here is going to be tough, so you need to have a little bit of patience getting that off of there. I saw a couple of guys just cut that sucker right out because they were impatient. But we're going to be patient and take our time and do this job right. Alright, now we got that bracket off. Now what we're going to do is remove our fuel rail. I already took the bolts out. It's only 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts on the side. When you remove this, pull it up slow. You hear a little pop on each one. Remove that fuel rail. Get this loose. That's your sensor there. I'm gonna take that off with a crescent wrench. Keep it, because you're gonna want to screw that into the new one. If you want, you can clean that up a little bit, but it's gonna fit into your new one, just like so. After you got your fuel rail to the side, the next thing you're going to want to do is the thermostat housing. A lot of people, they tend to want to drain the radiator first, but there's no need to really drain the radiator because you're not taking the radiator out. I might drain the radiator when I do my water pump. But other than that, it's these 2 bolts on the thermostat housing. You got 1, 2, 3 bolts on this side for the manifold, and 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts on that other side for the manifold. And I'll be back when I get the thermostat off and the manifold. Alright folks, got those off. As you can see, there's no dripping. I don't know why they say take that off. You don't have to worry about keeping the old thermostat because your new manifold should have came with a new thermostat. But now, what's left is the 8, 9 bolts on the manifold. When you're getting ready to do your water pump, you want to leave your serpentine belt on to hold the water pump still so you can get these bolts here loose. So don't take the alternator off or anything else off if you're doing only the water pump. But this have to put tension on there so you can get those screws loose. Now after you got the pulley for the belt off, there's 4 bolts that needs to come off. Right here, right here, and right here. And then there's one underneath here. And that size is a 13 millimeter. Get those off and your water pump should come off. The water pump can be a little stubborn to come out. Might have to give it a few knocks for it to come out. And hopefully you got your radiator drain. If not, it's going to come all out right there. Here's my new water pump. And I'm going to put it back in there in the same spot the other one came out of. As you can see, I put the screws out of the other one inside the old one just so I don't lose them. And make sure you put the gasket that comes with the water pump on the water pump before you put it inside there. And if you got any debris up in there, now's a good time to go ahead and clean that out.
How do we do it?
Alright, I have my new water pump in. I'm going to put the alternator back on. Once I get that all back on, and it should be good to go. Don't forget to put the pulley on your water pump before, I mean you can do it anytime, but before you put the belt on, you'll realize you're missing it. Once you got your air intake and your fuel lines laid to the side, before you take the manifold off, take a air compressor or something and blow all the dust off, because you want to minimize as much stuff falling into your engine as possible. And I'll be back after I have the manifold removed. Alright, now it's time to remove the manifold. You have a total of 8 bolts on each side. There's 10 millimeters. Get those guys off. 1, 2, and 3. And over on this side is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Get those off. The manifold is ready to come out. Once you have your intake manifold removed, you want to get some napkins and stuff them down in the holes right here so don't nothing fall inside your engine. Take your razor and clean all that gunk off of there before you put your new intake on. And remember to plug up all your ports so doesn't anything fall into them. And as soon as you get that clean, you're ready to put on your new manifold. After you have gotten that all cleaned off, you're ready to put the new intake manifold on and put everything back on just like you took it off. Put your gas lines on first, then your air intake. and you should be ready to go. And if you did like me, of course, you won't forget, but don't forget to put your alternator back on. As you can see, I already put the water pump on, and we're going to see how she runs. Alright, I got her all back together. Now here's the test. Let's see how she starts. Here goes nothing. Oh, sweet. All lights are going off. That's the seatbelt light. No engine light on. No alternator light. We're good, YouTube. Hey, hey.